Welcome back to our channel, where we dive deep into the most dramatic and emotional stories behind reality TV's biggest stars. With one final stroke of a pen, Caryn Chandler believed the kingdom was finally hers. The farm, the fortune, the legacy that shaped generations of Roloffs. She thought this was her moment, her crowning ceremony. But what Caryn didn't know was this. Amy Roloff had already written the ending of this story 10 years ago. Long before the battles, the cameras, or the whispers in the farmhouse hallways. And now, in a silent room where destinies are sealed and dynasties are decided, a single forgotten document was preparing to erupt like a time bomb. Caryn, the ever-faithful partner, the shadow beside Matt Roloff, was moments away from becoming the undisputed queen of the Roloff empire. Matt's new will was supposed to be her victory anthem, the legal decree that would sweep away Amy's legacy and silence the children who grew up on that soil. But destiny had other plans. Just as the final verdict was about to be read, a ghost from the past rose, carrying a contract forged not out of love, but out of strategy, heartbreak, and molten fire. A contract that whispered one truth. Amy Roloff had never been playing fair, she had been playing smart. While everyone else played checkers, Amy had been playing grandmaster chess. And now, the final piece was about to be moved. This is the chapter you've been waiting for. The untold climax of Little People, Big World. A tale of promises, power, betrayal, and a final twist no one saw coming. Based on insider whispers, exclusive theories, and carefully connected dots, we present to you the showdown that rewrites everything you thought you knew. So, if you want every shock, every twist, every revelation, hit that like button, subscribe to Motion 24, and ring the notification bell. Because trust me, you don't want to miss a single second of this story. Gray and gloomy weather befitting an era's end greeted the day of the will reading. The conference room of the esteemed Portland legal company was filled with a poisonous concoction of sadness, animosity, and barely hidden expectation. The shattered bones of the Roloff clan were arranged around the gleaming mahogany table. With a look of exhausted resignation on their faces, Zach and Tori had been bracing themselves for this hit for years. Optimists at heart, Jeremy and Audrey held out hope that their father would spare them the ultimate betrayal. Even though their faces couldn't be read, Molly and Jacob's presence carried a great burden as they stood silently as witnesses to their family's collapse. Caryn Chandler was seated across from them. Wearing an elegant black gown, she exhibited the epitome of dignified grief as she tenderly wiped a single tear from her eye with a spotless handkerchief. However, her anguish was an act, a carefully constructed front. The jubilant hum of victory buzzed in her head despite the veil of sadness. She would feel validated today. Everything she had worked over the past few years, managing Matt, ignoring his ex-wife and kids, would finally pay off today. The vast, famous, and worth millions of dollars Roloff farms would be hers. Everything, the reputation, the legacy, the wealth. She was victorious after playing the long game. Furthermore, Amy Roloff was present. Sitting calmly and quietly, she was just off to one side of her children. She wasn't sobbing or fidgeting with her hands. Anyone who paid attention could feel her profound serenity, a quietness that was unnerving. Caryn quickly brushed it off as shock. The last admission of her whole and total loss. It was a catastrophic error in judgment. Amy waited calmly, not in a state of horror. She had been planning this whole thing for a decade, and now she was only waiting for her nemesis to step into a trap she had laid. In the uncomfortable stillness, the sound of Mr. Albright's throat clearing sounded abnormally loud. He was an estate lawyer. With his spectacles fine-tuned, he unwrapped the document that may change their lives forever. The speaker started off by saying, "We are assembled here today to read the final will and testament of Matthew James Roloff." His voice had a monotone quality to it. In a setting so empty of love, He delivered the customary legal preamble about Matt's last desires and his love for his family, which felt like a terrible joke. The kids were getting ready. The hammer blow followed. The dispositive sections were read by Mr. Albright in a clear and impersonal voice. My love and aspiration for my 4 children, Zachary, Jeremy, Molly, and Jacob, are with them as they go out into the world. I have always been there for them, and I have faith in their abilities to be successful on their own. A chilly professional reprimand. A verbal slap on the head as the knife was inserted between their ribs characterized the discharge. The kids reacted as if they were hit. A pulsating muscle in Zach's cheek caused his jaw to clench. Under the table, Tori felt for his hand. The coronation follows. As for the entirety of my remaining estate, the attorney continued, including all real and personal property, all shares and interests in Roloff Farms LLC, the Roloff Company, and all associated business entities, and the entirety of my financial accounts, investments, and personal fortune, I bequeath, without reservation or condition, to my devoted partner and companion, Caryn Chandler. Words weighed heavy in the air, depleting the room of oxygen. We finished. It was true. He had done it. He had entirely and totally disinherited them all. Everyone held the woman responsible for their family's disintegration. The woman, full ownership of the farm, their birthright, their home, and the land their hands had helped create. Caryn was just brilliant. She pretended to be shocked and gasped, her hand shooting to her chest, whispering something along the lines of, "Oh, Matt." Her voice was visibly affected. I had no idea. For an instant, though, her eyes betrayed her. They gleamed with a chilly, steely victory. A message of complete domination was conveyed in her brief gaze across the table at Amy and the children. A checkmate has been achieved. I win. The fundamental deception that led them to this point was one that Matt had propagated for years with great regularity, a story that Caryn had cultivated and turned into a weapon. The idea that Matt has the absolute authority to sell the farm to anybody he pleased. It was common for him to yell out, "I bought Amy out," during interviews and as the show ran. "This farm is now mine. The deed has my name," in the face of charges that he was betraying his children by taking their inheritance. This proclamation served as his defense. From what we can gather from our inside sources, this was Caryn's well-planned strategy, not merely a conviction of Matt's. Claiming to have spent years trying to drive a wedge between Matt and his children, she portrayed their interest in inheriting the farm as a nefarious attempt to enrich themselves at the expense of Matt's legacy. "They're entitled," she allegedly would tell him, according to sources. "Your hard work is going unappreciated. A handout is all they desire." The discussions with Zach and Jeremy, which ultimately failed, were the high point of this story. Since no one else could comprehend Matt's vision, she presented herself as his savior and heir apparent. She managed to persuade him that his sons were unworthy, called their offers offensive, and lacked the tenacity to manage the farm the way he had. The subtly disappointed tone used to wrap the untruth made it all the more sinister. It helped Matt see his own selfishness in a new light. As a father delivering a harsh lesson to his sons about the realities of life, rather than as an immoral and unneeded business choice. However, the truth had been lying dormant for 10 years, a fundamental, decaying untruth that had long been disregarded. The truth was that Matt wasn't the only one who could give up the property. It was a strength that we cultivated as a couple over the course of 30 years of hardship, sacrifice, and cooperation with Amy. Even Amy, who is reserved and underappreciated, had never forgotten that. She had anticipated a day like this one, when Matt's irrevocable mistake could be caused by his impaired judgment due to illness and another factor. There was a heavy sense of aftermath from reading the will back at the lawyer's office. Zach stood up straight, an expression of rage covering his face. His voice quivered with anger as he said, "This is a joke. What comes next? Following every assurance? Does he abandon her completely?" An expression of profound, Soul-deep disappointment crossed Jeremy's face as he merely shook his head. Even though she was attempting to console him, Audrey couldn't help but cry tears of amazement. At the same time, Caryn was acting out the role of the unexpected but polite inheritor as she accepted Mr. Albright's sympathies. "I will make every effort to pay tribute to his memory," she stated, her voice betraying her true feelings of modesty. "The farm will be taken care of by me. It's in keeping with his wishes." Roloff Farms, Caryn Chandler, proprietor. The new entry sign had already begun to shape her future aspirations. The enormous house's family portraits were swapped out for her own, thereby erasing Amy Roloff from existence. When the spotlight finally fell on Amy, her children's expressions revealed a mix of bewilderment and a glimmer of forlorn hope. "I really doubt she would just sit on her hands about this." It was almost as if she was waiting to speak. With a mischievous grin teasing her lips, Caryn observed her, as if tempting her to unleash her fury, shed tears, or cause a disturbance. It would accentuate the sweetness of her triumph. However, Amy did not do any of those things. She looked directly into her children's eyes and nodded subtly to reassure them. After that, she stopped paying attention to Caryn and Zach, who was furious, and started paying attention to her own lawyer, an ordinary woman named Ms. Davis, who had been sitting quietly by her side the whole time. With one thoughtful nod, Amy met Ms. Davis's gaze. A signal it was. The match was far from over. The monarch was on the verge of taking action. A decade of calculated calmness had led up to this serene moment. Going back to the worst days of the Roloff divorce will help us appreciate its force. According to exclusive theories that delve into the family's past, the last discussions were extremely harsh. With his new life with Caryn just around the corner, Matt was hoping for a clean break. In a public relations blitz, he offered to buy out Amy's share of the farm. He merely desired its conclusion. On one point, though, Amy was unwavering. Focusing on the future was more important than amassing more wealth or diversifying investments. The subject was legacy. Those who were close to the talks at the time said that Amy was terrified of something quite specific. As Caryn progressed from employee to partner, she saw her impact on Matt expand. She witnessed Matt's vulnerability to external influences and how they could alter his view of his own children. Her nightmare scenario involved convincing Matt, maybe in his latter years, to abandon the children altogether. She wanted a secret clause added to the divorce decree for private reasons. These accounts state that Matt first objected. He took Amy's actions as an attempt at controlling him even after their divorce was finalized. He said she was distrustful and bitter. Yet Amy remained unwavering. She insisted on this one term above all others. She felt compelled to do it out of principle, wanting to protect the kids she had reared on the farm. Both the clause's simplicity and its legal soundness were commendable. In subsequent years, it became known as the Legacy Protection Addendum. Matt signed it, eager to finalize the divorce and move on, probably underestimating the legal weight of his ex-wife's emotive but toothless request. As soon as the ink was dry, he likely forgot about it, writing it off as just another episode of Amy's drama that he had to endure. He proceeded with his life, constructing his new world with Caryn, unaware of the legal time bomb he had just armed, as he signed it and the divorce was finalized. Meanwhile, Amy deposited her notarized and signed copy in a safe bank vault and patiently awaited the outcome. She patiently awaited a day that she prayed would never arrive for a whole decade. That day had finally come. Upon receiving a nod from her client, Amy's attorney, Ms. Davis, reacted in the conference room. In a composed manner, she retrieved a single sealed document from her own briefcase. The thin, official document of Matt's will stood in stark contrast to the bound book, which had a plain blue legal cover and appeared almost charming. Saying, "Mr. Albright," her voice expertly sliced through the awkwardness. "Before your client, Ms. Chandler, begins celebrating her inheritance, there is another legal document that requires this room's attention." Caryn's attention suddenly shifted to her. What on earth are you referring to? This shall be final. Matt has made his desires known. Disregarding her, Ms. Davis set the document on the middle of the mahogany table. This, she told reporters, is the legacy protection addendum to the marital settlement agreement between Matthew Roloff and Amy Roloff, dated and notarized on May 28, 2016. The room descended into a state of bewildered quiet. Matt's attorney, Mr. Albright, appeared perplexed. He had written the will using Matt's purportedly owned assets. No such amendment had ever been brought to his attention. A glimmer of comprehension started to emerge in the children's eyes as they gazed at the document. Their mother had planned this. This is ridiculous, Caryn grumbled, her voice somewhat too loud and harsh. Remember that scrap of paperwork from the divorce? Concerning Matt's last will and testament, that is irrelevant. He paid up her debt. He could do with the land what he liked. Quite the opposite, Ms. Chandler. Miss Davis responded with an icy tone. This ancient scrap of paper is completely relevant to what's happening now. Actually, it takes precedence over the main provision of the will that was read to you just now. So it's not valid anymore from a legal standpoint. She took her time untying the blue cover's ribbon and then spread the paperwork out for everyone to view. The autographs of Matthew J. Roloff and Amy J. Roloff were legible at the bottom of the worn pages. The notary public's raised, embossed seal appears beneath them. The evidence was overwhelming. Ms. Davis, her voice resonating with the inviolable authority of contract law, cleared her throat and started reading the crucial provision. Clause 4b, designated Inheritance Clause, states the following. In the event that either party, Matthew Roloff or Amy Roloff, bequeaths their respective share of the marital assets, specifically and including all parcels of land and business entities associated with Roloff Farms, in a manner that fully and completely disinherits one or more of their shared biological children, Zachary, Jeremy, Molly, or Jacob Roloff, the act of such bequest shall trigger this clause. The impact of the words hit her hard, so she waited. As panic set in, Caryn's expression shifted from smug to bewildered to pallid. With a calm and collected tone, Ms. Davis persisted. The complete share of the original marital assets that belonged to the bequeathing party will not be passed on to the named heir in the will once this clause is activated. Instead, the assets in question will be transferred to an irrevocable trust called the Roloff Children's Legacy Trust. At this very moment, Zachary, Jeremy, Molly, and Jacob Roloff are the only beneficiaries of this trust, and they will each receive an equal share. The beneficiaries will elect the trustees of this trust by a majority vote. Secure victory. This chamber went boom. Skulking with an expression of unfiltered indignation and shock, Caryn sprang to her feet. Oh no! How is that even feasible? He is capable of informing me. This doesn't add up. Behold the ruse. However, it was not a ruse. That was just brilliant. The one thing that had set in motion the redemption was Matt's last act of treachery against his children. He had unjustly returned all of his assets to his children when he tried to give them to Caryn, using the unbreakable authority of a contract he had signed. His will, which Caryn mistakenly believed to be her coronation document, served instead to set off Amy's cunning trap. Right when Caryn was about to celebrate her triumph, her whole fortune, the farm, the business, and everything they had worked so hard to build during their marriage was taken from her. Currently, it was in the possession of the Roloff Children's Charity Trust. They rightfully owned it. As the first shock wore off, the children's expressions began to change to ones of incredible relief and validation. After all these years, they finally got a good look at their mom. This time, as the heroic figure who discovered a means to rescue her beloved farm, and not as the one who had sold a portion of it. She had endured years of miscommunication and criticism while keeping the ultimate secret card hidden away, playing the longest game of her life. However, the revelations were far from over. Another, even more incriminating piece of evidence was going to be revealed when Caryn and her lawyer started to mutter something about legal challenges and questioning the addendum's validity. A piece that would reveal Caryn as a villain who had deliberately disregarded a direct warning, in addition to being a selfish beneficiary. An incredible new piece of information has just come to light, according to an insider in the Portland legal world. A man named Mr. Albright has emerged as the executor of Matt's will. He seems to have felt obligated to give Amy's legal team a sworn statement out of professional conscience, or maybe a desire to shield his legal firm from potential backlash. This comment puts Caryn's career to rest. This explosive document states that Mr. Albright voiced serious concerns at a will planning meeting. He routinely inquired of Matt, "Are there any pre-existing contracts, marital settlement agreements, or other legally binding documents that could encumber these assets or supersede the terms of this will?" As part of his inspection process, it was just a simple question, but it meant everything in this particular circumstance. According to the sworn testimony, Matt appeared confused, which might have been due to his fading memory or his inability to fully commit to his new life. But Caryn was the one who showed up and took the call. She completely disregarded the matter, as stated in the lawyer's sworn statement. Reportedly, she made a little condescending sound as she waved her hand and chuckled. She is quoted in the affidavit as stating, "Oh, don't worry about that." Amy lacks the intelligence to have perpetrated such an act. Pause and take it all in. Amy isn't smart enough. Everything changes with this one sentence. The internal betrayal twist. It demonstrates Caryn's purposeful lack of knowledge and malevolent attitude. In Matt's decision, she was more than just an unaware bystander. She took involved actively but, when faced with a possible legal hurdle, relied on her own conceited underestimation of Amy instead of seeking the facts. She was made aware of the warning, which was a clear recommendation from an attorney, but she deliberately disregarded it. Any grounds she may have had to contest the appendix are completely destroyed by this testimony. She can't now act as if she were a naive, unprepared beneficiary. From her statement, it is clear that the lawyer was informed of the possibility of a pre-existing contract, but decided to disregard it, perhaps due to her arrogance and her belief in Amy's lack of intelligence. It shows a manipulator who was so sure of herself and her hold on Matt that she disregarded his ex-wife and fell headfirst into the trap that had been warned of. The upcoming legal dispute will now involve more than just contract law. The evidence of Caryn's poor faith has now tainted it. The combination of Amy's vision and Caryn's haughtiness was the missing piece. As a result of their combined actions, she was left vulnerable, without weapons, and about to lose all that she had fiercely battled for. It was going to be cleaned clean as the checkmate was announced. The revelation of Mr. Albright's affidavit hit the quiet conference room like a ton of bricks. Caryn Chandler's fortress walls have been broken by the legal document known as the Legacy Protection Addendum. The lawyer's sworn evidence, however, was the internal spark that threatened to detonate the whole building, crushing her to her very core. The mask she had painstakingly put on to appear as the shocked and distraught hair didn't merely crumble, it vanished. The remaining state was one of bare, primitive, and unadorned simplicity. She yelled out, "He's lying." Her scream ripped apart the tense silence in the room. With her finger poised as a weapon, she spun around the estate lawyer. "You're taking precautions by being dishonest. You're both involved in this. This is mine. And you want to take it away from me?" Even though he was used to the formalities of business law, Mr. Albright physically retreated and his face turned white. He gave Amy's attorney, Miss Davis, an expression that begged for teamwork in the face of an unstable client. Wild and desperate, Caryn's eyes flew from person to person, hoping to find an ally or a moment of uncertainty she could take advantage of. Strangely, she didn't find any. Their emotions went from bewilderment to a deep, dawning understanding as the kids stared at their mom instead of her. The expression on Zach's face conveyed every detail. Just a few seconds ago, His anger at his father had been a raging inferno. This novel feeling, however, was distinct. A sense of wonder gradually built up. He beheld his mother, a woman he had frequently perceived as uninvolved, as if she had abandoned him and gone her own way. For the first time, he could perceive her as the fierce fighter she had always been in her heart. Not only hadn't she not capitulated, but she had also skillfully repositioned her forces for the inevitable last, crucial war in family history. Despite Caryn's breakdown becoming a hurricane, Amy stayed cool. Neither did she gloat nor smirk in response to the yelling charges. She finished her task. Someone had set the trap. The predator, who had been too proud to see the trap, was now reduced to watching itself flail. Rather than accusing, she chose to remain silent, which was the worst move she could have made. Silence was the sound of unquestionable triumph. Caryn, seeing that she was losing control of the situation, shifted her attention to her legal team while her voice dipped into a conspiratorial hiss. "I am fighting this. Effortlessly, we combat this. This is nothing more than an empty gesture by my resentful ex-wife in an effort to take what is legally mine. In Matt's mind, the farm belonged to me. His last word is his will." A shark from a downtown firm who evidently enjoyed a good battle. Her lawyer grimaced and nodded. "We will file an immediate injunction to contest the validity of this addendum," he added, his tone betraying his real feelings. "We will challenge its authenticity, the circumstances of its signing, and its applicability against a legally executed final testament." However, Miss Davis, Amy's lawyer, had already gotten ahead of the game. "You are more than welcome to give it a shot," she remarked chillily. "My client was really particular, though." Matt Roloff's signature on the amendment was not only notarized and signed by him, but it was also witnessed by two separate individuals who are both alive and have given sworn affidavits attesting to his mental clarity and lack of coercion. Not to mention that the notary public who put his mark on the document has maintained an outstanding record and has had his license for 30 years running. An official transcript of his diary entry from that day is already in our possession. The paper and ink have been subjected to forensic examination. To borrow a legal word, the document is unimpeachable. She paused to allow that sentiment to linger before dealing the last devastating blow. Furthermore, any first-year law student worth their salt can tell you that a binding contract regulating the distribution of particular assets has priority over a future testamentary desire, in terms of which the will is superseded. Nothing you've promised in another contract can be withdrawn under the power of will. Parts of Matt Roloff's will remain valid. Any of his assets that were never part of the marital estate will still be available to Ms. Chandler. The will, however, is merely a document that activated a contract he signed a decade ago, as it pertains to the farm and its related enterprises. Looking straight at Caryn, she said, "A contract that Mr. Albright, by his own sworn testimony, gave you every opportunity to investigate." The lines of war were formed, but instead of a pocket knife, one side had a nuclear deterrent. Despite Caryn's rage-fueled desperation, the subsequent legal battle did not unfold like the spectacular courtroom scene she had imagined. Dismantling her every claim was a tedious and embarrassing process. Our first-hand accounts of the court procedures portray a bleak picture for Caryn. The primary move made by her group was to cast doubt on the authenticity of the appendix. Subsequently, this assertion was disproven. The forensic report's findings were highly congruent with previously identified era-specific signatures belonging to Matt and Amy. The discussion was vividly recalled in the deposition given by the notary public, an esteemed and elderly gentleman. He made note in his log that the inheritance clause was uncommon but entirely lawful. The two witnesses, who were a neutral legal aid and a former Roloff company manager, confirmed all of the details. According to reports, the judge cautioned Caryn's attorneys against submitting unfounded motions due to the forgery claim. The next line of defense was that Amy had Matt sign away his future rights under pressure so that he could get out of the marriage. It was already a poor argument. Evidence from Ms. Davis's team's review of divorce negotiating emails and documents shows that Matt was the one who insisted on a quick resolution at any costs. He was the one who was most willing to sign the divorce paperwork so he could start a new chapter in his life. One legal expert we consulted with described the story that Amy had supposedly forced him to sign the will as utterly laughable. Caryn's main argument was that the will should be given the most weight as it was Matt's last and most recent wish. Along with her legal argument, this was her moral argument. My heart was smitten by his affection. He wanted me to carry on his legacy, she allegedly claimed during her deposition. When the warm, fuzzy feelings of love and last desires clash with the cold, hard facts of a contract, the law steps in. At the preliminary hearing, the judge laid out the court's stance in no uncertain terms. A person's ability to leave their possessions to others in a will is not unqualified. Any agreements or contracts they may have made in the past will apply. Mr. Roloff promised his children and ex-wife something in a contract. He did not revoke the promise. Rather, his desire brought about its fulfillment. Deposing about Mr. Albright's warning was the most embarrassing portion of the proceedings for Caryn. He was compelled to face her with his sworn declaration while she was under oath. Without fail, Ms. Davis persisted. Ms. Chandler, were you present at the will planning meeting on August 14th of last year? Yes. And did Mr. Albright, as a matter of due diligence, ask Mr. Roloff about any pre-existing contracts with his ex-wife? Caryn made an effort to shift the blame by saying it was a trying period and that she couldn't remember the details. However, Ms. Davis presented the lawyer's meticulous, time-stamped meeting notes. Allow me to reacquaint you, Ms. Chandler. Mr. Albright is ready to testify under oath that you were the one who responded according to his notes. I quote, "You told him? Amy isn't smart enough to have done something like that." Ms. Chandler, did you say those words? Caryn collapsed when confronted with a direct inquiry, knowing that she was under penalty of perjury and that the lawyer who overheard her answers sat across the room. She mumbled something about having said something similar. It was an off-the-cuff remark, a casual comment that disregarded a clear legal warning. Ms. Davis continued, her voice resembling steel. A comment that shows you think Amy Roloff is intellectually inferior, which is why you think she secured your entire claim to this multi-million-dollar estate. Does it sound right? Because Caryn would not accept loss. The legal struggle continued for months, like a slow-motion car wreck. She was in a worse position, and her legal fees were rising with each denied motion and piece of evidence. How did they get their hands on that sum of money? It was derived from the individual assets that Matt had bequeathed to her. His individual bank accounts, investment portfolio, and 400 and Onique. It was tragically ironic that she was wasting the money that Matt had provided her in an aimless pursuit of the heritage that he had unknowingly shielded her from. In court, Caryn was losing money, while the Roloff kids were busy formulating plans. As a preliminary step, we had to establish the Roloff Children's Legacy Trust. The original farmhouse, the beating heart of the heritage they had recently restored, was where they met around the weathered oak table, not in a lawyer's office. After all these years, finally, there was an air of mutual respect and cooperation instead of animosity and hostility. Separated souls vying for their father's favor, they were no longer that. They were one cohesive family, brought together by a common lineage and the startling discovery of their mother's hidden resilience. The first chairman of the trustees was chosen to be Zach, who was practical and rooted. Jeremy, who has a flair for style and an eye for marketing, had responsibility for how the farm appeared to the outside world. Molly offered to be in charge of the trust's money and make sure everything was legal because of her keen intellect and organizational skills. As for the family's guiding moral concept, Jacob, they made it clear that taking care of the farm in an ethical and historical manner would be their top priority. The first thing they did as a board of trustees was harsh, and everyone agreed on it. Caryn L. Chandler was the intended recipient of the formal notice of no trespass that they had drafted. It made it official that she couldn't set foot on any of the trust's property, which now encompassed all 100-plus acres of Roloff farms. There wouldn't be any time for adjustment or a smooth handoff. A precise amputation had been performed. Sources suggest that the time of serving this order will be remembered in the annals of the Roloff family. While Caryn was still technically living in the house that Matt had constructed, she probably went to the front gate of the farm one afternoon to have a look at the land that she thought would soon be hers. A deputy from the sheriff's department met her, rather than a kind farmhand. And there was Zach, standing right behind the sheriff, arms crossed, face a stone mask that no one could interpret. The papers were graciously presented to her by the deputy. She glanced over the legalese, but the message was very clear: leave now. With a mix of anger and begging on her face, she glanced past the police officer at her ex-stepson. Zach, this is unattainable. Here I call home. If Matt had desired, when Matt's will was read, a contract was activated. Zach interjected with an emotionless voice. The trust is in control now because of that agreement, but they refuse to acknowledge your right to be here. As had always been planned, the farm now belongs to his children. No more debate ensued. With the cops on the scene, it was obvious this was no negotiating session. She was humiliated and defeated to the point that she had no choice but to turn around and leave the gates of the empire she had come so close to conquering. No one could let her in. The monarch was ousted and banished from her own realm. Investigating the farm's financial records from the previous 10 years was the next step for the kids. A comprehensive forensic audit was launched under Molly's leadership. Reportedly, what they found was an unhappy spending pattern and set of financial judgments. Caryn's influence appeared to be significantly greater than that of a mere partner, as evidenced by projects that appeared to benefit her personally, expenses that weren't related to the farm's primary operations, and a general entanglement of personal and corporate cash. Their determination was strengthened by this financial assessment. They believed that they were saving their heritage from years of poor leadership and self-serving influence, not just reclaiming it. The quiet, heartbreaking thud of a judge's gavel marked the end of Caryn's legal ordeal, rather than a spectacular bang. Her attorneys had attempted to negotiate a settlement after realizing the situation was dire. However, with Amy's unwavering support and Ms. Davis's advice, the kids declined. This has to do with principle, not money. It has to do with legacy. They would not settle for anything short than complete triumph. And they achieved complete triumph. Ms. Davis's request for summary judgment was granted by the judge because there was no triable issue of fact. As a result, there would be no jury, no dramatic trial, and no opportunity for Caryn to make an engaging story. The case ended before it really started. Caryn's assertions were legally vivisectioned in the judge's written ruling. He confirmed the legacy protection addendum's unquestionable legitimacy. He referenced more than a century's worth of contract law precedent. Additionally, he addressed the problem of willful ignorance, specifically citing Mr. Albright's affidavit in a particularly caustic concluding line. The defendant, he said, was given a clear warning by knowledgeable legal representation. She decided to disregard this caution in favor of a contemptuous and, to be honest, derogatory evaluation of the other party's intelligence. She is no longer able to claim surprise or request that the court shield her from the fallout from her own arrogance. The checkmate was total and utter. Matt's personal belongings were entrusted to Caryn Chandler. Certainly enough to live well for the remainder of her life, it was a large fortune. She had millions of dollars. However, the prize was bitter and meaningless. Her fight had been for an empire, not for luxury. She was the unquestioned mistress of the farm and had battled for the name, the land, the heritage, and the public standing of being Mrs. Roloff, in all except name, and she had been deprived of all that. A new reality was brought about by the aftermath. The Roloff Children's Legacy Trust is currently in charge of overseeing Roloff Farms. The entry sign is still there, but it now has a new significance. Once more, it is a family business, carrying on a tradition that has been passed down through the years. According to reports, the kids are cooperating and negotiating the intricate dynamics of their shared responsibilities while remaining committed to the same goal. By taking charge of their future and not forgetting the past, they have started to mend the rifts. And the grand strategist Amy Roloff is finally vindicated. The farm does not belong to her, and she has no desire to do so. Her triumph was always about protecting the land for them, not about taking it back for herself. She is now the esteemed matriarch of the family and a welcome guest. She watches her grandchildren play in the pumpkin patch, the same patch where she raised her own children, secure in the knowledge that the land beneath their feet is theirs, protected by a promise she had the foresight to demand and the patience to enforce. Her legacy is not in the ownership of property, but in the brilliant, loving act of foresight that secured her children's birthright. She is the quiet queen who checkmated the usurper, not to take the throne herself, but to return it to the rightful heirs. Amy's foresight secured her children's legacy and was the final move in a decade-long chess game. Was this the most brilliant, satisfying ending possible to this epic saga? Let me know your final thoughts on the entire story below. Did Matt Roloff kick Caryn Chandler out of Oregon after calling off their engagement? And LPBW fans beg Amy Roloff, don't lower yourself to this nonsense. Matt Roloff takes fans inside gorgeous new house. And Amy and Matt Roloff back together. I will explain everything. Caryn Chandler and Matt Roloff have permanently broken up. The latter appears to have left Oregon following her split from the LPBW star. The TLC diva supposedly uprooted her life and never returned to the community. The Oregon house that Matt and Caryn built took a long time. For his soon-to-be bride, the former intended to construct a brand new home on the property. His extravagant purchase, which he dubbed his dream home, cost him a mint. His legion of devoted fans were holding their breath for the little people. Big world actor to show off his mansion. It was with much anticipation that they saw the happy couple exchange vows and begin a new chapter in their lives. But not long after finishing their $1.4 million house, the TLC stars called off their engagement. How did Caryn disappear? Does Matt have a role? The wedding ceremony was much anticipated by Matt Roloff and Caryn Chandler. They had a grand vision for their fairy tale wedding and were busy making plans. But a few months ago, the LPBW stars revealed that they were breaking off their engagement. The U.S. Sun reports that Matt and Caryn's breakup was caused by his $1.4 million mansion. According to someone close to the family, the couple supposedly had multiple fights about the house before they broke up. Caryn allegedly quit the relationship because Matt ignored her views on key issues, according to the source. Chandler merely desired that her viewpoints be acknowledged. However, when things failed, she simply left. She and Matt officially ended their relationship a long time ago. They never felt the urge to create the mansion, according to the reality TV star. Matt and Caryn's abrupt breakup baffled a lot of viewers. During season 24, the former proposed and the latter accepted. Therefore, everyone was anticipating the couple's impending wedding vows. After Roloff broke up with his fiancée, fans couldn't believe it. A major choice in Caryn's life was recently made. She departed from Oregon for good, relocating to Arizona. The LPBW star acted a few months subsequent to the split, claiming that Caryn abandoned the relationship because Matt ignored her views on important matters. An insider said, along with her mom, Chandler's daughter Brittany also moved. However, Connor, her son, chose to remain behind. The U.S. Sun reports that Chandler's parents' advanced age was a factor in her decision. In order to keep them healthy, she had to pay them regular visits. The Little People Big World actress's family is very important to her, and she enjoys spending time with them. But Matt's farm meant that Chandler had no choice but to settle in Oregon. She spent a lot of time in Arizona and on the farm. Reality TV star, though, is free to focus on either one or the other. Because she is unattached, Caryn can do as she pleases. Taking care of her parents must have been her decision, so she moved in with them after breaking up. The TLC artist and her ex-boyfriend chose to keep things amicable. Many are relieved to see that Matt and Caryn are remaining amicable despite their breakup. LPBW fans beg Amy Roloff, don't lower yourself to this nonsense. After 25 seasons, Little People, Big World is no longer airing, and viewers might be wondering how the group is now earning a living. According to the latest information circulating, fans pleaded with Amy Roloff to come up with an alternative strategy for producing money. What are viewers saying about this latest scenario, and what happened? After TLC's season 25 finale, it was confirmed that Little People, Big World would be discontinued. The majority of viewers anticipated this after Tori and Zach Roloff made the decision to leave the show and pursue their own interests, but it took months for the news to spread. According to current Little People, Big World insider information, the majority of the cast is happy that season 25 marked the end of the series. Many of them are excited about their vacation and the opportunity to work on other projects. As it happens, Matt Roloff was the only one who wanted things to go on. Since Little People Big World is no longer airing, many fans are curious about the cast's hobbies and sources of income in the absence of the network's regular TLC payouts. Amy Roloff's most recent updates indicate that she appears to be marketing a new product online. According to Amy Roloff's most recent TikTok updates, she is advertising a rotary cheese grater to her sizable following. Amy posted a video of herself utilizing this new tool in her own kitchen, stating that it is excellent for preparing carrot cake at home and other recipes. Many Little People, Big World viewers criticized Amy Roloff for this most recent rotary grater cash grab, even though they recognize that the cast must find another source of income since that the show is not filming. Fans of Little People, Big World made a lot of jokes and cheese puns, but many also thought that Amy was beneath her by trying to sell this cheese grater. In the opinion of many viewers, she shouldn't be pushing this grater just because she is probably receiving a kickback and slash or a portion of the sales. Hey man, anything to make a buck and not get a real job again, one commenter commented. She wants to sell cool books and movies on TLC and promote items on TT, of course. Well, her personality grates, so it's fitting, said another commenter. Don't lower yourself to this nonsense, Amy, a third individual replied. The money is not necessary for you. Matt Roloff takes fans inside gorgeous new house. Matt Roloff, star of Little People, Big World, has a stunning new home. He recently shared it with a few notable visitors. What's new with Matt, his new residence, and his other activities? The titles of Matt Roloff are numerous. In addition to being a TV personality, he is also a father and a grandfather. Matt Roloff is also a constructor, which is another aspect of him. The TLC personality is constantly working on a construction project. There is always plenty to do in the Roloff Farms area to keep Matt and his crew occupied. Whether they are building something entirely new or performing restoration and repair work. The construction of Matt's ideal home, which he and Caryn Chandler will share, was his most recent major undertaking. Fans have enthusiastically followed the Little People, Big World star at every turn, and he has been keeping them updated on all the developments. Matt and Caryn Chandler were working diligently on their new Little People, Big World home. They wanted to have everything just the way they wanted it, so they didn't cut any corners. According to Matt Roloff, the project's development was proceeding ahead of schedule, and he and Caryn would be moving into their new house by December. Now that February has arrived, a lot of little people, big world fans are interested in this new house and several of its special characteristics. At first, Matt intended to choose a farmhouse, but as soon as the remodeling started, he claimed that this new house was starting to feel more contemporary. March 2023 marked the start of the build. After 5 years of preparation, Matt Roloff finally started construction. Jacob Roloff, his youngest kid, has also been a huge assistance to him. After the new house was finished, he moved into Matt's old house. Considering how much labor has gone into the construction, Matt Roloff recently had some unexpected visitors. An update about spending time with his grandchildren was offered by Matt. From the side of the family of Jeremy and Tori Roloff, this time. The new location proved to be a hit with everyone. The kids adore the wall vacuum at Little Papa's house, stated Matt Roloff. Regarding the appearance of the rest of the house, Matt Roloff's post doesn't reveal much. However, there are a few other hints besides the wall vacuum. In the background, you can see floor-to-ceiling windows, brick fixtures, and hardwood floors. With this build, Matt Roloff really went all out, and his grandchildren seem to adore it. It appears like the new location will be a lot of fun, with lots of memories to be created. LPBW, Amy and Matt Roloff back together. In a bizarre Instagram video, Jacob's wife Isabel brought Matt and Amy Roloff back together. Sadly, Matt removed the video from his Instagram account. Unfortunately, TV shows Ace managed to get a few screenshots of Matt and Amy in the video before it was erased. What was it that rekindled the romance between these two? Read on for a rundown of this Instagram post that was later removed. One thing is certain about this year's pumpkin season, according to Roloff Farm's Instagram. All the bells and whistles will be present every single day thanks to Amy Roloff. A week ago, someone shared, "Amy surprises us with a different costume every day at our pumpkin festival. That is why we adore her. We absolutely love this." Has an opportunity to meet Amy and witness one of her legendary outfits presented itself to you. Given Amy Roloff's dedication to the property, it's not surprising that she would encounter Matt. But in the video that Matt later removed, Jacob's wife Isabel served as a go-between for the two ex-lovers. In the clip, Isabel Roloff uses social media to scold Matt and Amy. She is being very explicit about the distinction between Instagram stories and Instagram reels. To put it simply, Isabel says that an Instagram reel will remain on their profile. The 24-hour mark is when an Instagram story will begin to appear. Everyone who follows Roloff Farms on social media knows that Isabel Roloff is in charge of it. Consequently, it's not surprising that she could show Matt and Amy the ropes on Instagram. Even though Amy and Matt are no longer together, fans apparently aren't too shocked to see her on the property daily, according to Reddit comments. The pumpkin season has a financial interest for one of her fans. Therefore, her extra effort is entirely justified. But other LPBW fans stepped in to clarify that Amy was no longer the owner of the property. Thus, it's safe to assume that pumpkin season didn't bring her any financial gain. Those who were in agreement with the OP drew attention to the fact that her Rolex and the TV show were included in the pumpkin season bundle. The opinions of other fans are as follows. "Even if my ex-husband's farm paid me, I still wouldn't work there all day. She deserves it. The real Amy is far more stunning than the photo. Those waiting in line to snap a picture with her are always welcomed by her. I doubt many people would go to such lengths. She's fantastic. I thought she was on a motorcycle tour, wasn't she?" Fans of LPBW had wildly varying reactions. The majority, though, found it endearing that Amy Roloff was making an effort to promote pumpkin season, especially since her ex-husband owned the land. In your opinion, should Amy and Matt Roloff get together? Do you have any idea why he removed this video? No more today. What are you thinking about this gossip today? Let us know in the comments. and stay tuned by subscribing to our channel to get more updates like this. Thank you.